The distinction between awakening ing and realization qing in Zen Buddhism, introductions in Buddhism, known in Chinese as Shen and in Japanese as Zen, emphasizes direct experience and intuitive insight into the nature of reality. Unlike other approaches that prioritize scholastic study or elaborate rituals, Zen directs practitioners toward immediate awareness, transcending intellectual constructs. Within this tradition, two closely related yet profoundly distinct terms Seng awakening, enlightenment and Qing realization, verification, play a central role in understanding the depth and maturity of the Zen path. At first glance, these two terms might appear interchangeable, as both refer to transformative experiences along the spiritual path. Yet within Zen discourse, they reveal nuanced layers. Eng refers primarily to the sudden breakthrough, the insight into one's original nature, often equated with seeing into one's nature, kenshu, while Qing implies the deep, embodied verification of that insight through sustained practice, integration, and living realization. Together, they map a journey from initial awakening to the full embodiment of Buddhahood. That's essay explores in depth the difference between Eng and Qing, drawing upon classical Zen teachings, stories of the masters, and doctrinal reflections. It also considers their philosophical implications, practical applications, and relevance for contemporary practitioners. In doing so, we discover that Zen points not merely to moments of awakening, but to a lifelong process of embodying that awakening in every aspect of life. 1. Defining En, awakening. The word En in Vietnamese, like its Chinese counterpart Wu, means to awaken, to comprehend, to be enlightened. In Zen, Eng refers to the sudden flash of insight where one directly perceives the truth of non-duality, emptiness, and the nature of mind. It is often described as seeing into one's own nature and becoming Buddha, Gensing Cheng 4, classic. Zen literature abounds with stories of Eng. A monk may hear the sound of a pebble striking bamboo or see the blossom of a plum tree and suddenly awaken. These stories highlight that Enji is not acquired through gradual accumulation of knowledge, but arises in a moment of direct seeing. For example, the sixth patriarch, Huining, upon hearing a verse from the Diamond Sutra, "Let the mind arise," without dwelling anywhere, experienced sudden awakening. Enjin realized the essence of the teaching. This shows that Enji is immediate, intuitive, and non-conceptual. However, Zen masters repeatedly caution that Enji, though crucial, is not the end of the path. Awakening is the beginning, the opening of the gate. The famous saying goes, "Before awakening, mountains are mountains and rivers are rivers. At awakening, mountains are no longer mountains and rivers are no longer rivers. After realization, mountains are again mountains and rivers again rivers." Here we see a distinction between initial insight, Eng, and full realization, Ch Ning. 2. Defining Qing realization. The term Qing comes from the Chinese Zhangzheng, meaning to verify, to attest, to realize. In Zen, it points to the process of embodying and stabilizing awakening through continuous practice. While Eng is often sudden, Qing is gradual. Unfolding over a lifetime of discipline, Zen teachers often compare Eng to the initial recognition of a path in a dark forest. One sees the direction, but the journey still lies ahead. Qing is walking that path, step by step, until the insight permeates body, speech, and mind. It is not merely a conceptual confirmation, but a lived verification, tested against the conditions of daily life. To illustrate, Consider the story of Shan Master Gishon. When his disciple, Yongshan, had a great awakening, Gishon said, "Your awakening is genuine, but now you must let it mature for 30 years before it bears fruit." This emphasizes that Qing requires time, integration, and maturation. Thus, Qing is about transforming the flash of insight into a stable realization that does not falter in the face of challenges, suffering, or complex human relations. It is awakening embodied in compassion, wisdom, and skillful means. 3. Awakening. Without realization, the danger of incompletions, Vansters frequently warned against mistaking Eng for full enlightenment. A sudden awakening can be dazzling, but if not cultivated, it may lead to arrogance, complacency, or false claims of mastery. This is sometimes referred to as the problem of wild fox Zen, where practitioners cling to an initial experience, but fail to embody its truth. The story of Beijing and the wild fox illustrates this danger. A monk once claimed that enlightened beings are beyond cause and effect, but upon dying, he was reborn as a fox for 500 lifetimes. Only after confessing his error to Master Beijing did he find release. The story underscores that awakening must be verified by realization, which aligns insight with the moral law of karma and compassionate activity. In other words, Eng without Qing is incomplete, like a seed that sprouts but withers without water and sunlight. Zen demands not only the spark of awakening, but also its full flowering in daily conduct, board. The interdependence of Eng and Chonglthao distinct. Eng and Qing are inseparable. Without awakening, realization has no foundation. Without realization, awakening remains shallow. Zen masters often liken this to two wings of a bird. Both are necessary for flight. Hokuin Ikoku, the great Japanese Rinzai master, emphasized the cycle of awakening and cultivation. He taught that practitioners often have multiple awakenings, each followed by deeper cultivation, leading to further breakthroughs. This great doubt, great awakening, great practice cycle reflects the dynamic interplay between Eng and Qianji. In the Soto Zen tradition, Dogen Zenji expressed a similar view in his doctrine of practice realization. Shusho Ito, for Dogen, practice and realization are one. The very act of sitting meditation zazen is itself realization. Here, Eng and Qing are not sequential, but simultaneous. Practice is realization, and realization is practice. 5. Philosophical dimensions. The distinction between Eng and Qing also reflects broader Buddhist debates about sudden versus gradual enlightenment. In the Platform Sutra, Huinen argued for sudden awakening, but also stressed that realization requires continuous practice. This synthesis acknowledges both the immediacy of awakening and the necessity of cultivation. Philosophically, Eng represents the ontological insight into emptiness, not and non-duality, while Qing represents the epistemological and ethical embodiment of that insight. Awakening sees reality as it is. Realization lives according to that reality. 6. Practical implications for Zen training. In Zen training, this distinction shapes pedagogy. Koan practice in Rinzai Zen aims at precipitating Enga, sudden breakthrough beyond dualistic thinking. Yet after such an experience, students must continue Koan practice for years to deepen and verify their understanding. Moving toward Chi-Enji. In Soto Zen, where silent illumination, shakuntas, is emphasized, practitioners may not seek dramatic awakenings, but instead cultivate realization moment by moment. Even here, the interplay of Eng and Qing is present. subtle awakenings are verified in the continuity of practice. Thus, Zen training balances the urgency of awakening with the patience of realization. 7. Contemporary relevance for modern practitioners. The distinction between Ing and Qing offers guidance in navigating spiritual experiences. Many people may have sudden insights through meditation, psychedelics, or life crises. These can be profound, but without integration, they may fade or cause confusion. Zen reminds us that such insights must be verified by living practice, ethical conduct, and compassionate action. In a world hungry for quick solutions, Zen insists on patience and discipline. Awakening is precious, but realization is the measure of transformation. True enlightenment is not an isolated experience, but a way of life. 8. Conclusion. From awakening to realization in Zen Buddhism. End. Awakening and Qing realization together describe the path of enlightenment. Awakening is the sudden recognition of one's true nature, a breakthrough beyond ignorance. Realization is the lifelong process of embodying that insight, verifying it in thought, word, and deed. Awakening without realization risks incompletion. Realization without awakening lacks foundation. Together, they form the dynamic rhythm of Zen practice, guiding practitioners from the spark of insight to the flame of full enlightenment. As the Zen saying goes, at the moment of awakening, the 10,000 dharmas are seen as one. In realization, one walks freely among the 10,000 dharmas. Awakening shows the unity of reality. Realization lives that unity in the midst of multiplicity. In this way, Zen invites us not only to awaken but to realize, not only to see but to embody, not only to know but to be.